Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's a real pleasure to have you all here today. My name is Derya Büyüktanır Karacan, and together with my colleague Jackson Howard, I represent EURAXESS North America based in Washington, D.C. Today's session is a part of our broader work to support researcher collaboration and research mobility between Europe and North America. We also cover both US and Canada. And for today, we are focusing on Skłodowska-Curie postdoctoral fellowships. And for those who may have just exploring this for the first time, MSCA is one of the EU's flagship programs supporting postdoctoral researchers. It gives the opportunity to move internationally, develop new skills, and build your research profile, whether in Europe, as you're also going to hear in a few minutes, globally through the Global Fellowship. And before we dive into the details, let me just briefly say a few words about EURAXESS. EURAXESS is a European Commission initiative designed to promote Europe as a research destination and to connect researchers globally. It aims to connect researchers with opportunities in Europe. And we are 9 global hubs worldwide. And from North America, we work with researchers and institutions across the US and Canada. And at the same time, we are closely connected to colleagues across Europe who would provide country-specific support, or wherever you are thinking of going, there's someone on the ground who can help and guide you. So our main role is to help you to navigate mainly Horizon Europe. And today, MSCA, as you're going to hear more, is under Pillar 1, which means it's bottom-up funding, open to all disciplines. And we will also hear from social science experience today from Sarah, and with no predetermined topics. And that flexibility, I think, makes really kind of big strengths for these EU funding programs. So if you're interested in staying connected, we encourage you to follow our updates through the EURAXESS portal and our mailing list, where we share funding opportunities, deadlines, and events on a regular basis. I mean, every 2 weeks. For example, if you missed a session, you can just revisit and watch our recordings on our portal. So now turning to today's session, as you see also on the screen, we are very fortunate to have excellent speakers with us. First, we will hear from Lili Kankaya, National Contact Point from Malta. Hi, Lili. And she will walk us through MSCA postdoctoral fellowships in detail and share practical tips and applications. And then we will hear from Sarah. Hi, Sarah. And good evening. A current MSCA Global Fellow at Carleton University in Canada, who will share her personal experience, including what worked and what to avoid, perhaps. A quick note before we begin, please feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A box at any time during the session. My colleague, Jackson Howard, thank you, Jackson, also for supporting me as a colleague all the time. And Lily and Jackson will also moderate the Q&A session for you. So if you have some questions, please put them on the Q&A box. And it's my now a great pleasure to give the floor to Lily, National Contact Point for MSCA. If you would like to read the bios, please just visit our website. So Lily, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening for those in Europe, but good afternoon to you. I'm Lili Kankaya. I'm National Contact Point for MSCA, Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions. In short, I'll be calling it MSCA in Malta, and I work at Scienza Malta. And today I'm going to walk you to the flagship of individual opportunity funding of Horizon Europe, which is the postdoctoral fellowship. This is the most popular call ever in the whole Horizon Europe program. So what is it? It's a bottom-up. So any excellent research idea can be applied. You can apply with absolutely any research idea. This is the difference when we talk about MSCA and then Horizon Europe. It focuses on the three I's, as we say. So there is the international aspect, intersectoral aspect, interdisciplinary aspect as well. And there is now, in the last few years, we see mostly exposure to the non-academic sector too. Typically, you will need to have a host organization. So this can be in any EU member state or Horizon Europe associated country. There is a list of these countries, but those are typically Turkey, for example, Serbia, Albania. There is quite a lot, and somewhere in the slides I do have the list. And you, as a researcher, you will be applying with the host organization and a supervisor doing your postdoc. And what are the main eligibility rules? First of all is the mobility rule. This is MSCA is about mobility, so you have to move to another country. And you shouldn't have lived more than 12 months in the last 3 years to the deadline of which is 9 September. So 3 years before, you shouldn't have lived more than 12 months or worked or resided in the country that you are applying. So the mobility is a must. They do not accept online kind of, it has to be physical mobility. Furthermore, you should not have more than 8 years full-time research experience. So here the after your PhD, okay, so the PhD is not counted. Here the key word is full-time. If you had job that is not fully research, you can then deduct. There is a calculator that is available on the website, which can help you basically can help you calculate exactly if you're within this eligibility rule. The host organization. These are typically universities, but not only. It could be private research organization, it could be NGO, it could be even a private company. So SMEs as well. So any legal entity that is, of course, involved in research. There are two types of postdoctoral fellowship, which is the European fellowship and the global fellowship. What is here the difference is that if you are not long-term national of EU country, a long-term resident or national of EU country, you should apply with the European fellowship. So this means that you will be moving to a European country or EU member state or associated country. The duration, your nationality does not matter, so you can be of any nationality and any age. The duration is typically minimum 1 year, and it goes up to 2 years of funding. So, all scientific fields, but you have to then select your best fit, of course, because then there will be 3 evaluators that will be, at least 3, that will be accordingly scientists from the panel that you choose. And who is submitting? Now this is something new because previously, if there is any of you that maybe applied last year, it was allowed that the researcher could submit the proposal through the funding and tenders portal, while now they require that the proposal should be submitted through the host organization, not the researcher. Now, it's 100% funded, okay? So don't be afraid from this table that you see here. The living allowance, that's your basic salary. Depending of the country that you choose, there is the so-called country correction coefficient, which is a percentage of this amount. For example, Belgium is 100% of that. But then depending of the standard of life, could be lower, little bit lower, let's say. Then you have the mobility allowance, which is typically topped up with the salary. However, it could be also a compensation of your rental or any bills that you might have. This is depending of the host institution, but typically it's topped up. On top, of course, you have to pay social contributions and taxes according to the country. law. If you have family, if you are married or you have children, then you also in addition have 660 euro per month. Then we have the long-term leave allowance and special needs allowance that are typically not added automatically. They're in special cases. But then we also have the institutional unit costs. And these are, if topped up per month, okay, so if your project is 24 months, you have 24,000 to spend on research, training, and networking. What this includes? Absolutely anything that you might need for the implementation of the project. Also includes travel to conferences, publications, and so on. And then the host organization will also get the management and indirect contribution of 650 euro per month. So, as I said, the duration of the project is up to 24 months. However, if you can add another 6 months if the last 6 months are spent in a non-academic placement. What is the non-academic placement? It has to be, as the word, it should be non-academic entity. Could be private company, could be ministry, depending of your project, of course. There is secondments in the meantime. These secondments do not have the mobility rule. So you can, for example, you can your project could be hosted in any European country, but in the meantime, for secondment, you can go anywhere, even including back to your country. So anywhere in the world, of course, it has to make sense for the research that you are doing, and maximum amount of secondments, which is half of the duration of the project. So if you are applying for the 24 months, you can spend 12 months in secondments. And these secondments could be split in different periods. It could be 1 month in one country, another 1 month in another, but maximum should be the half of the project duration. What else? It's like the actual application is submitted through the funding contenders portal. Okay, so there is the part A and part B of the proposal. Part A is just form where you complete some data such as, for example, the host organization address and the supervisor and so on. And the secondments are not being encoded in this part. So the entity that is hosting you is not being part of this part A application. However, the non-academic placement should be included as a partner. So officially it becomes like non-academic organization part of your project. So, as I said, there is this widening countries. Okay, so the associated countries, most of them are widening countries. Not all, but most of them. And the widening countries, what does it mean? So there is the second chance of funding, meaning that this is additional budget that is specifically if you choose your host organization to be based in one of those countries that are listed here. These are typically the EU member states that joined a bit after, let's say in 2004, 2007, including Malta. Okay, it's like a widening country. And you will just submit your application, and with a tick in the electronic form, you will agree that you have the second chance of funding. So if you're not automatically selected from the MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship funding, then is a second chance of funding, and is the same project, the same, is absolutely the same. But it's just a second chance of funding because to help these less developed in terms of research countries to also get more of you excellent researchers there. By the way, last year it was 17,000 proposals being submitted. So the success rate is also a bit decreasing. Usually it's around 14%. Last year it was around 10-11%. So if you select a widening country, you have better chances to be funded. And the evaluators, they're basing their points, because you receive a score which is in percentage, um, based on excellence, impact, and implementation. The whole proposal is maximum 10 pages. Okay, so you have to make sure that in 10 pages you have to explain all the research, all the state of the art, and how you go beyond the state of the art, the methodology, gender dimensions. There is a number of questions that you have to reply strictly. And the excellence is 50% of your points. So it's very important that is innovative idea, very good idea, and you manage to describe it in these 10 pages, because this is a challenge, in fact. Then impact is 30% of your score and implementation is 20%. In the impact section, for example, you will be talking about even, for example, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, maybe relation, what the impact of your project will be to the society, and also to the research, to the novelty in the research world. As well, you will be describing here your how your career will be impacted as well, because this postdoctoral fellowship is very prestigious funding and opportunity, which will eventually impact you as a researcher in the future. And the implementation part is basically you have to describe the work packages, the deliverables, the milestones, the risks, the capacity of the host organization that you have selected, and so on. The deadline is 9 September, 5 o'clock Brussels time. Okay, so it's a bit, I think it's coming like 1 o'clock in the States. And the budget is 339 million euros. Now, regarding the resubmission, if you have submitted already last year, if you have scored less than 80%, you will be not allowed to resubmit this year. You have to wait one more year. And here is the actual statistics from last year. You can see that you have to really, all to 10 pages is really a challenge, because really you have to score, as we see, above 95. So you have to tick and reply to all the questions in the application. You will receive this presentation eventually, and there are some useful documents that you can use. And I definitely advise you to go through the guide for applicants, and of course the work program and the evaluation form, so you can see how the evaluators will actually, what the evaluators will be looking in your application. In order to download the application, the actual proposal template, I advise that you register on the funding tenders portal and you download it from there, because sometimes there's some changes that the Commission is doing, and could be that there is some update in the actual template. So to make sure that you have the latest, the relevant template, is best to go there. And of course, there is the actual call page that you will find here. And as you see, my template is MSCA Radiance, which is a project of the national contact points around the world, in order for us to produce some materials that are very useful for us, for you as applicants, which I definitely recommend you to go through the handbook. This is not official document of the European Commission, but is based on a lot of work, based on real proposals, and we do have here suggestions what to include and what not to include in each one of the sections. So you have the link there, and yeah, it's my suggestion, definitely. Now, I just go through very few tips for your application. So you have to start planning first, of course, then develop the actual proposal, write it, and then, of course, submit it within the deadline. And yes, there are national contact points in many countries, okay? So make sure that you check if there is in your country, wherever you are based. Contact them because we do review the proposals. Although we are not scientists, we do review the proposals in terms of what is missing, what could be added in the structure of the actual proposal. Download the correct template because you might have friends, colleagues that have applied in the past, and maybe they will give you their proposal as an example, and do not use that because they will definitely spot it. So download the newest template, the correct template. Organize meetings with your supervisor because that's very important. Follow a lot of recordings. There is a lot of recordings nowadays online. Follow all the sessions to make sure that you also listen from experienced people that already applied and even from the European Commission in terms of to make sure that you are eligible. And yes, there is a lot of materials online. And yes, read the supporting documents that I just mentioned in the previous slide. And what I suggest usually to applicants is to have the template because in the template you will find a lot of instructions. And these instructions, they take a lot of space, so you have to delete them to fit in the 10 pages. And I do suggest that you have one version of the template that is with the instruction, and then you have the clean that you will be working and writing on. And yes, speak to colleagues about the research idea. They might help you somehow, you know, like do not be afraid to share your research idea. Check Cordis and Horizon dashboard. So these are two portals which you can check all the funded proposals, but not the actual full proposals, but the abstract of them. So you can see even the name, the acronym, the title that they use, what the Commission already funded, what new you can provide on top of already is being funded. Ensure that the idea is innovative and impactful, very important, and review relevant policies. Like there is the Horizon missions, there is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. If it's your research is related, do mention in the proposal that there is a relevance to this policy or to this mission or to this goal. And meet often with the supervisor. In that sense, is not the consortium, sorry, the supervisor. And if you have non-academic also placement, also make sure that you also speak with the other organization. Now, you have to come up with a title and also acronym. To this is not so important. Also, it is the first impression that the evaluators see. So think of something that is attractive, something that makes sense, of course, but attractive project acronym is very important. At least for me, when I see proposals, is the first thing that it gives me the impression how this project is going to be built even after. Of course, follow all the steps, all the questions, reply to all questions that are listed in the actual template. Be innovative, clear, and you have to write in a way that you have to convince the evaluators why they have to fund you, why this research idea deserves to get the funding. Then you can a bit restructure, you can add some images, some tables, figures to make it a bit visually even attractive. You can use bold, highlight some text. And what also I suggest is that the most important sentence, whatever you want to like highlight to the evaluators, put it in the first sentence and the last sentence of each paragraph. Then when it comes to the reviews and submission stage, share your draft with your supervisor, of course, with any help that you might have at your institution, the host organization, the national contact point, if you have such in your country, and then read again. Also, what is important, not to submit in the last moment, not in the last day. Since I said that there is 70,000 proposals, it could be that the system actually crashes. So make sure you submit at least 2 days before the actual deadline. Then if you remember of some updates, it's not a problem. You can just update. Sorry. So one thing that I want to share with you is our opportunity in Malta is in June, 16, 17 June. And for if you choose Malta as your host organization, then we invite you and we can cover your travel expenses to come over for 2-day masterclass. So if you're coming from EU country or associated country, it's 800 euros. And if you come from third country, it's 2000 euros. And the masterclass proven in the past years that is very, very helpful. So if you choose Malta as your host organization, you find the links and you can apply here by 2nd June. And that was for me. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Lily. I think there are so many really good tips and tricks for the ones who really want to, apply. And September is very close, a few months left. So I think if they are thinking and if they have the draft, I think they're ready to go, right? Because we still have a lot of, 3, 4 months to get prepared. But as you said, you're very helpful if they need help. But I think your point is that what's really important, they need to really have the latest versions of all the documents, right? This is very tricky, very important. Okay, thank you for all these, remarks and sharing your experiences as well. So I'm going to invite Sarah now to share her experiences. And Sarah is currently an MSCA Global Fellow. As you know, there are two kinds of fellowships, as you heard from Lily. So she's now in Canada, right, in Carleton University. So she's going to share her personal journey from applying the fellowships to navigating her experience itself. So, Sarah, thank you so much. And now over
Thank you. I hope you can see my screen.
You can make it full. Yeah, now it's perfect.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
So thank you for having me today. I wanted to share a little bit more about myself. I'm Italian. I pursued my higher education in Italy between Venice and Naples, where I got my PhD in Iranian philology, religions, and history, which led to several years of postdoc. Afterwards, I moved to Viterbo, nearby Rome, where I was employed as a non-tenured assistant professor already before applying to the Marie Curie call. My academic journey has involved several stays abroad, including in Iran, where I conducted solo linguistic fieldwork and documented a tiny variety of Laki spoken in Arsin, a city in Kermanshah province, at a time when it was still possible. Beyond academia, I'm the mom of a 4-year-old boy and a keen nature lover. So before applying to the 2024 Marie Curie call, I was seeking to combine my love for nature with my expertise in Iranian languages in order to make a meaningful impact. And while considering also applying to national funding schemes in Italy, I had the feeling that the Marie Curie actions provided a great framework for me to conduct my own bottom-up research while also developing further soft skills useful for my prospective academic career. So, as you have already heard, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions are the flagship program of the EU for doctoral education and postdoctoral training of researchers. Finally, when I applied to the Marie Curie call, I was funded, and now my project compares landscape vocabulary in selected languages of the Iranian area to document and understand similarity and variation. My objective is to foster community engagement in ecosystem conservation and the protection of the linguistic and cultural heritage associated with Iranian landscapes. To do so, I'm now based in Carleton, at Carleton University in Ottawa for my outgoing phase, which will end in April 2027. I will then move to the Institut National de Langue et Civilisation Orientale in Paris for my secondment, which will last until October 2027. And in November 2027, I will move back to my university, the University of Tusha, to complete my project. As you've already heard, as I said, the Marie Curie Actions are the European Union's flagship funding program under Horizon Europe, and they consist of several different schemes. There are the doctoral networks, which is great for institutions who wish to implement doctoral programs in partnership with organizations from different sectors across Europe and beyond, and train highly skilled doctoral candidates. There are the postdoctoral fellowship, which is my own funding scheme, and targets researchers holding a PhD who wish to carry out their research activities abroad, acquire new skills, and develop their careers. The Staff Exchanges Action funds short-term international exchanges to develop collaborative projects between different organizations based in Europe and beyond. The Co-Fund Actions, which provide funding for regional, national, and international programs for training and career development through co-funding mechanisms. And finally, there is the Marie Curie and Citizens Actions, which brings researchers closer to the public through the organization of European Researchers' Nights. When the postdoctoral fellowship opened in April 2024, I started to prepare my submission. The first thing I did was checking the Marie Curie website for instructions, and I found it useful to organize the work into 6 steps as suggested in the website. The first step was familiarizing with the funding scheme I had chosen. I read carefully the handbook, which has been talked about already, which provides fundamental guidelines on drafting the proposal. I also referred to the website and attended some workshops to get a general idea of the writing process. As a second step, I made sure I met all the criteria to apply. For instance, if you are a parenting scholar, you have the right to an extension from the date of your PhD, which is 18 months for mothers and a period equal to the parental leave for fathers. So, and of course, I shared my idea also with my family to make sure the international mobility required by the program was a thing they would be comfortable with. Around May, I started to elaborate my ideas and contacted my prospective ongoing and beneficiary supervisors, both of which I knew beforehand, to make sure they would accept me as a Marie Curie postdoc at their institutions and receive their initial insights on my very general idea at that point. It took me about a month to come up with a more consistent project. And in mid-July, quite late, I would say, I started drafting my application, which took me about a month of full solo writing commitment during the summer. Many people start a lot in advance and collaborate more with supervisors. In my case, I wrote the application basically alone, but then I had a chance to compare my application with one of my colleagues who had been awarded a few years before, and this was very useful to refine the project at the last stages. And also, I sent my application to the secondment host, was the research office luckily offered revision services, and I would say that this made a difference. And at that quite close to the deadline, I submitted my application and patiently waited for the results to be notified in February 2025. So after that, I, of course, received an email notifying me that I had been awarded, and I was very happy about the results. Just a little bit more about the structure of the proposal. As you have already heard from Lily, the template is organized into 3 parts. Part A is filled online via the submission form and contains the proposal title, the abstract, key information on the beneficiary, the supervisor, the researcher, and other administrative and financial information. It also contains an ethics and security screening, which I would say dialogues with Part B2. Part B1 is the core part of the proposal, and it's 10 pages maximum, structured according to the 3 award criteria: excellency, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. It should contain the details of your proposed research and training activities, along with the practical arrangement proposed to implement them. And Part B2 contains the CV of the researcher, the capacity of the participating organizations, additional information on ethics and security. In this sense, I said that it dialogues with Part A, environmental considerations in light of the Marie Curie Green Charter, and a letter of commitment from your outgoing host in the case of the Global Postdoctoral Fellowships. As for Part A, I would say that the most important thing is to organize descriptors according to the decreasing order of importance, because this has a direct bearing on the selection of evaluators. So be careful of what you put here, because it will have a direct consequence on the selection of your evaluators. So you want people that are expert in your field to read your proposal, right? As for Part B1, it is organized into different paragraphs. It is less free than Part B2. And what I would suggest here is to provide an initial summary of your research topic, and of course, treat all the topics that are required and listed in the handbook, including objectives, research questions, interdisciplinarity, gender dimension, and data management. Of course, for the contents that can be organized in lists, you can use bullet points for research questions, for instance, or objectives. And another thing that is very, very important, I would say it's crucial, is to provide evidence of the fact that the research you wish to carry out is relevant for the priorities of the European Union. So I spent some extra time skimming through the documents of the policy documents of the European Union to identify the priority area which was relevant for my research project. And I would also suggest you spend some extra time in sketching a Gantt chart that is both clear and visually appealing for the reviewers. So you scholars, don't be afraid of using by visualizations, which are all very welcome when it comes to evaluating the proposal. As I said, Part B2 is a bit freer. You can structure your CV in list form, and you can highlight education, previous research experience, mobility, teaching experiences, awards, publications, conferences. One thing that was relevant in my case was career breaks. I had a very long career break due to maternity leave, and this needed to be included and motivated. So all your career breaks can be included and hopefully motivated. So you can also provide information on the hosts, and you have to provide information on the hosts. And in this case, you have to highlight why they are the best hosts for your project. In this part, you can also add information on ethics and maybe summarize what you have already included in Part A, and address topics relevant to the Green Charter. And finally, include the letter of commitment of the outgoing host. And I would suggest to ask for it in advance, because it is an official document signed by a representative of the outgoing host. And so it needs to go through a process to be accepted. So after you hopefully receive the fellowship, the grant agreement phase kicks in, which can be confusing. And keep in mind that you have a project officer. For each project, you have a project officer that accompanies you through the project's implementation, and is a figure that, of course, you can return to when you have questions. The grant agreement itself is a legally binding contract between the European Research Executive Agency and the project beneficiaries, outlining the work, budget, and obligations for Marie Curie research funding. In my case, I also had to sign a partnership agreement, which is a formal document defining the roles, responsibilities, and financial arrangements between my beneficiary and associated partners. So make sure that you read and understand both of these agreements, which are very important. And at a certain point, you will need to function as a pivot between your institutions, because you will have to apply for a work permit. And generally, at least in Canada, international postdoctoral researchers need a temporary work permit, which is LMIA exempt. So you will have to apply for that as well, with the help of the outgoing host. And throughout this phase, I also had to prepare for relocation with the whole family and a cat. So the process can be confusing and a bit frustrating. Of course, you have to make sure you have the right type of visa. In my case, fortunately, only an electronic travel authorization was needed to go to Canada. But it can differ based on countries and people, of course, and countries of origin. And keep in mind that you also have a family allowance, which is aimed at reducing obstacles to mobility. And you are eligible if you have a spouse or partner, including an equivalent legal cohabitator, person who legally cohabitates with you, and dependent children. The question of housing needs to be addressed a little bit in advance, but because finding a place to stay can be tough. So to the European people wishing to go to Canada, I would say that I would suggest to start the search in advance. And then there are two crucial points, which is filing taxes. You have to make sure that you have to file where you have to file taxes. Usually a fellow pays taxes in the country where she is employed. So in my case, I will pay taxes in Italy, but there are sometimes there are agreements between countries to avoid double taxation. So you can refer to those as well. And of course, health insurance. You have to make sure we are covered by some health insurance. In my case, I had already a private contract with an insurance covering me. But my suggestion here would be to check the possibilities with your outgoing host and make sure that you have health covered for the period you will go to a third country. And of course, make sure that consider that the fellowship money can cover the fees of the health insurance. I actually regretted not having relied more on EURAXESS services for help and assistance. So my final suggestion would be to check out EURAXESS services and understand how they can be helpful for you. And consider getting in contact with local Marie Curie Alumni Association members, which are always very helpful and open to actually replying to your questions. Thank you very much for listening. I will interrupt my presentation.
Wow, thank you, Sarah. I think it was really helpful because you not only covered your, how to write your proposal, but also you covered private part of this application. I mean, it's not only the mentally, or professionally you are in, but you have to organize everything in advance. And I know that some of the countries have kind of more, or longer, procedures for tax or health insurance and other things. I think these are great tips. Thank you so much. I also learned, in every session, Jackson and I organize a lot of ERC and MSCA and Pillar 2 events, and every time we hear something different or a new experience. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now, we are going to we received a lot of questions, and some of them were answered by Jackson and Lily while Sarah was presenting. So now it's time to answer the rest of the questions. But Sarah, you're welcome to just jump in and answer some of the questions if it's relevant for you. Okay, so Jackson, Lily, the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think Adrian in the audience as well can see there's a dynamic series of questions and slowly but surely answers being provided. I've been doing my best as everyone has presented. Thank you to the three of you to write out some responses to questions that I know the answer to. Lily has also been active in the Q&A box and in the chat trying to provide information. So at this point, I might invite Lily and Sarah, if they have questions that are pending, they've identified they have an answer for. At this point, I think I turn to you as the experts. There are certain questions that are very technical in nature. Perhaps Sarah, you might be able to speak to things like if color can be used in a certain part of the form. I admit I am not well versed in once you actually are on the application portal, what happens at that point. So I would like to invite both of you just to, as you wish, chime in, and I'll continue to type out some responses as I can. And maybe to start, I could just propose a question. Actually, Sarah, I see you've unmuted yourself, so we'll jump right to you.
No, I was concerning colors. I didn't have any problems using them, not for the written part, but for the Gantt chart, for sure. And written part needs to be a little bit, neutral in. So I used bold and underline. So instead of colors, but I'm not sure if colors are allowed for the written part.
I can jump in maybe from my experience. They're allowed, but as Sarah said, I would not recommend to use colors in the text. Colors you use in the Gantt chart, maybe in the tables, images, of course, but not in the text. I would not recommend to use any color than black.
I have a question. I'm sorry if this was addressed earlier, but someone has a question about interdisciplinary programs or areas. And in this case, how do you decide which field to select during the application process? Lily, I don't know if you can address that.
Well, this really depends of the scientific proposal, so I can't give you an example now, but let's say life sciences with, I don't know, social sciences, or, kind of like mixing different disciplines. This is going to add value to your proposal, because apart from doing something that you already have experience on, the idea is that you're going to learn something new. So true. You could kind of like have a training and learn something, or else the non-academic sector could be something different that could be also from different discipline. So it really depends, but there is various way to approach.
Thank you. Lily, I'll keep you for the next question. Someone has permanent residence in Europe, but says in the past 2 years, they're currently doing a postdoc in Canada. Can they apply for the global fellowship to spend 2 years in European countries and then the last one in Canada again? And I think you can elaborate here on the order in which one carries out the research when they're outside of Europe versus in Europe, and the importance there.
Yeah, in fact, the last one should be back in Europe, the last year. It's mandatory period. So you can go to every country, including Canada, the States, in the first 1 or 2 years, and the last year should be back in Europe.
Thank you. Someone asks if a project purely in mathematics is acceptable. You did talk, Lily, about the interdisciplinary nature of the focus. However, it is open to all fields. So I don't know if that you feel is an authoritative answer, if you want to elaborate at all, but that is an audience question.
Absolutely. Any research idea, completely bottom up. So yes, mathematics is absolutely acceptable.
Someone asks, as a hypothetical, what happens if someone is in the middle of their 2 to 3 year postdoc on this scheme, but then they receive a full-time academic position? So perhaps if I'm reading between the lines here, the mandatory 1 year return phase to Europe, is there a penalty for this, or what happens there?
No, there is no penalty. In fact, it happens quite often that in the middle of the actual project, you receive some kind of like career opportunity that you would like to take on. And yes, you can stop the project. Of course, you have to speak to your project officer first, to your supervisor, to the host organization, agree together, and then there is no penalty. It's just like the funding will stop at the month that you have finished, you have already implemented.
Thank you. I'm going to keep coming with questions as long as I see them coming in. If you could elaborate at all on the eligibility window. I know you had mentioned it's 0 to 8 years post PhD. How strict is calculating the many factors you mentioned, like parental leave or time not spent working in the field? How official or unofficial is that calculation, let's say?
Yes, there is some reasons like parental leave, like also not only, I'm sorry, there is also a few other kind of conditions that you can extend your eligibility window. Apart from the fact that I mentioned is a full-time research experience, 8 years full-time research experience, which in most of the cases could be justified and could be extended. But yeah, maternity, paternity leave, these are all, as long as they're documented, you can have extension.
Perfect. So I think I'll quickly just highlight the fact that at the end of your presentation, you mentioned the scheme to support applicants who are considering Malta or institutions and universities in Malta. So just as you do and some other universities also do, if people are interested in a particular country, because typically you might know where you want to go, I think the MSCA national contact point in that country is the best starting resource. So I think Lily today is answering questions in a very general sense, probably not in a sense of giving very tailored responses to you today for your individual research profile. But we will be sharing the recording of all of these answers. But that said, I have shared at multiple different points in the chat and the Q&A a link to a EURAXESS post where we catalog the Horizon Europe national contact points. You can click through there, find the official EU page, and then filter based on your country and make sure you click MSCA. And then you'll get a much more smaller list of only people like Lily throughout all of the different European countries who can provide you maybe more tailored information. I want to loop back to a question that's come in. Again, Derry and I represent Canada and the United States, so a lot of people are interested in their institutions in North America being hosts. So maybe Lily, you I think already have addressed this, but just to really drive home the point, if people are representing here their own universities and they want to attract postdocs, if you could just reiterate the basic direction and order of things. Once more.
Yes,
Thank you.
if you're representing a host organization and you will be acting as a supervisor, let's say, then it is the global fellowship that EU citizens or associated countries of the program citizens or long-term residents can apply for the global fellowship, and they can spend 1 to 2 years in Canada, the States, into your organization. And then the last 1 year, they have to return back to Europe. So yeah, you can also in the EURAXESS portal, you can upload your interest that you are willing to host such researchers.
Thank you. Maybe a question for both of you. Someone asks about the resume or the part B2. How is it used in the evaluation when it comes to the excellence, impact, and efficiency of implementation?
Well, it's not part of the score officially, because officially is excellence, impact, implementation, part of the score. But of course, the reviewers, the evaluators do look, and they do pay particular attention to the CV part and to, yes, the host organization as well, capacity, experience. So yeah, it's also quite important. So please do pay attention to B1 and B2 very, very much.
I would add that actually the CV demonstrates that your profile is good for carrying out the proposed research. So it's kind of the proof that you can implement the project correctly and you have experience for that.
Mm-hmm. May I also jump in and ask one question related to these, the eligibility criteria? Because sometimes we think that this CV, resume is so important, and people think that, oh, I don't have, so much experience, but it might be the opposite sometimes. Some people have really long breaks and they're really experienced, but not full-time researchers after 10, 12 years. they want to apply for MSCA, right? So it is because of this age restriction, I think we should really focus on that, but still they can apply, right? Even they have a bit, more experience than the very early career researchers. MSCA fellowships are also open for them, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. So in the past, there was a specific panel for those researchers that want to return to academia.
Yeah.
Now it's just one application, but definitely it is quite often we see it, researchers that have left the research career, such coming back to the academic, even non-academic sector.
Okay, thank you.
I see multiple questions about people and their eligibility windows. I hope Lily has addressed these concerns just based on as long as the documentation is there, that counts. If we haven't, please feel free to send a follow-up message. I think I'll just dismiss those for now. Someone asks about the non-academic extension. Do you need to have identified a partner organization at the time of application, or can you add it later on?
Yes, you have to identify it at the time of application. You have to already know. You cannot add it after. So you have to already agree with the host organization that is non-academic organization. This organization has to be already registered on the portal. So you have to insert the so-called PIC number, which is 9-digit code, which every organization has. And yes, you have to plan it in advance.
Thank you. I think I see multiple questions that Lily you have addressed with your comments. Maybe I have two more that we can then wrap up nicely and keep this at 1 hour. Someone asks, are successful applications publicly available?
Not the whole application, but you can see the abstract. So you can see what the project is about, but not the full application. No, they're not available. Maybe you can ask in your institution, perhaps if they have and they can share with you, but not on a website that is European Commission or Marie Curie website, no.
And then someone asks, does it matter if there are no secondments as part of your proposal?
Is not a requirement to have a secondment as such, but I do highly recommend it and suggest it because it does give another value to your proposal, being even the interdisciplinary that we talked before approach, being even a career development in terms of like a training or some skill that your host organization cannot provide you. So yeah, I do recommend it.
Sarah and Lily, before I close out, I want to maybe address part of a question that I see pending as well. Someone asks for a resubmission, how can they best address a research gap for a period of unemployment? Is there a best section to address this, the best maybe narrative approach for this? I think this is probably something that can be addressed over maybe a dedicated call with an NCP, but if you have any short advice in this scenario.
I would say it's needed. You can address it in a section in Part B1, and of course, when you treat the literature review and probably to summarize something about why you are looking to investigate more a specific topic, can go there. I don't have any specific suggestion because actually each application is sector specific, I would say. So it depends on what's your field of expertise, with the topic you're treating, and it can have different answers to the same question. So I said that the B2 is freer, but you have some degree of freedom also in Part B1 to address all these topics.
Thank you. Okay. I think, suddenly then, if you wish to share any closing remarks, I give you the floor before we turn to Daria to wrap up the webinar.
No, I thank you all for the opportunity, and hopefully I shared some good tips and tricks with everybody to be successful in their application.
I'm sure it's even I think right now who is planning to apply all of the tricks that you have been sharing. I think very useful. Before I remember my elder sister who was applying for postdocs and she was just writing everything. So it was like even just 15 years ago everything was different. There were not so many helpful webinars like this. So we're very happy that both of you were with us today. Initially, when we started to organize this event, we were planning to also invite supervisors, because I think that part is so also important, how you really connect with them. For global fellowships, you have two, for European one, but still they really have a great role, right, in the application. So in the upcoming, hopefully, webinars, we are also going to invite more speakers so that we can hear their experience. So Lily, Sarah, Jackson, thank you so much for all your feedbacks. So I just want to wrap up and finish today's session, but just a few more remarks. Just keep in mind that this webinar is recorded and we will share it very soon with you. And I also want to encourage you to explore EURAXESS portal, North America portal as well, MSCA opportunities, and we have an initiative, MSCA Global, for most of the institutions. But of course, to stay connected with us for the future, please follow us. And just a quick note, on Wednesday this week, we have also a webinar on ERC, European Research Council. So we hope to see some of you there as well, if you're interested in the other grant under Pillar 1. Thank you again for your time, and we really look forward to staying in touch with you. Thank you so much.